the United Nations headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. The iconic Secretariat's building proportions are based on phi. As you know, this proportion links the structure with the Washington Monument and the Great Pyramid. Did you know the 69,000 square meter site of UN headquarters is considered international territory and is technically not a part of New York City? The UN headquarters has its own security force, fire department, and postal administration that even issues its own stamps. The notion of UN headquarters being a city within a city reminds me of how the Vatican is also a city within Rome. I like to refer to this as a nested city or fractal structure. I was fascinated to discover that the Italian government donated an Arnaldo Pomodoro sphere-within-sphere sculpture to the UN in 1991. The golden ball beautifully represents the concept of a city within a city. The internal structures seem to me like buildings and streets on the inner surfaces of the spheres. I'm intrigued because I've seen 3 other similar sculptures in locations significant to my research. Pomodoro made a series of 6 spheres within spheres scattered around the world. Significant sphere-within-sphere locations are the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden in D.C., very close to the Capitol building, the De Young Museum in San Francisco, and in the Vatican's courtyard of the Belvedere.
United Nations headquarters, which was built in 1945 and financed largely by John D. Rockefeller. Inside UN headquarters is an ominous meditation room. The custodian of the meditation room is Lucis Trust Company. At one time, the Lucis Trust was located at 666 United Nations Plaza and was formally named Lucifer Publishing Company. The Rockefeller-funded UN meditation room is 33 feet long and 18 feet wide. 18 feet is 6 plus 6 plus 6. The small, dimly lit, windowless room was built in the shape of a pyramid that is laying on its side. At the center of the room is a 4-foot-high, black, casket-shaped stone slab which weighs 6.5 tons and is extremely magnetic and rests on a concrete pillar. The pillar descends beneath the floor into the bedrock and taps into the Earth's hyperdimensional energies to induce a state of altered consciousness. Not far from the meditation room is the United Nations Security Council chamber. This is the emergency room of the UN, where the world leaders meet when there is a threat to peace. They decide the fate of nations. Even though Israel has over 200 uninspected nuclear weapons and has violated dozens of resolutions, no sanctions are ever imposed because of the United States' veto powers. Notice the giant mural that towers over the Security Council room. The central focus of the UN mural is the phoenix bird that has risen. The phoenix bird is a symbol of Lucifer. Egyptians believed that the phoenix symbolized a god who rose to heaven in the form of a morning star like Lucifer after his fire immolation of death and rebirth. Notice that the phoenix bird is not standing above his own ashes. He is standing above his old skin. Like a snake, he has shed his old skin and is revealing himself as God at the center of the mural. At the top left, there is a church steeple without a cross. The missing cross symbolizes the death of Christianity. Below, a woman receives the rays of the sun god, while the man in front of her plays Pan's flute. To their right are 2 pyramid symbols and people joined together by a long blue serpent-like cloth. Below the risen phoenix, a sword is driven through a dragon beast. This represents the killing of old beliefs and religions that depicted Lucifer as a beast. The New World religion worships him as beautiful. Behind the phoenix, the ghostly figures of the walking dead are stepping into a void. They symbolize depopulation. On the right panel, the pale horse from the book of Revelation is the bringer of death to humanity through weapons, hunger, and disease. The man is releasing him. The chained black man represents slavery, while the top panel of the mural shows a technologically advanced white race who control industry, art, and science. In this post-apocalyptic mural, the military man standing on the tail of the beast represents worldwide military power. He tips his helmet to the elite, who are climbing out from underground cities where they safely hid from the apocalypse. In the main oval panel above the phoenix bird, a woman is holding flowers. She is the bride in a wedding ceremony. Who are these newlyweds that are kneeling submissively beneath the serpent in the overhead tree? Could the newlyweds symbolize William and Kate? The serpent in human form is tempting the little girl Eve, who accepts the apple. On the right side of the top panel, a reptilian green creature with scaly skin is dancing with a naked woman while musicians entertain him. The general message of the UN's Phoenix Rising mural is that humanity is stepping into a new Luciferic reality. Beneath this disturbingly prophetic mural, world leaders make global decisions that affect the lives of nearly 7 billion people. What's hard for most people to grasp is that our elected government leaders are involved in an apocalyptic scheme to enslave the masses under a world government dictatorship. How do these leaders sleep at night? How do they live with themselves?
The angle that this large-scale alignment takes through Central Park matches the interlocking Pythagorean triangle's hypotenuses. 4 such triangles match Central Park's proportions of 5 to 24 precisely. I then wondered, what is this unusual aqueduct doing just under the surface of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir? It seems to mirror the triangle's hypotenuse angle. That's certainly odd, but in my research I've learned to follow so-called coincidences wherever they lead. The aqueduct leads us to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Getting closer still, we see this variation of the Templar flag in the atrium of the Robert Lehman collection.
The Statue of Liberty. So I'm going to take a little bit of a rabbit trail for a second and get uncomfortable. And we're going to find out who Lady Liberty really is. So we're going to go back to the French sculptor Frederic Augustus Bartholdi. In 1834 to 1904, went to Egypt in 1868 for inspiration. The construction of the Statue of Liberty began in 1878. So let me talk about this for just a second. How many of you were told in school that the French donated the Statue of Liberty to the United States of America? How many know that is absolutely not the truth whatsoever? Okay? Whatever they tell you, just forget about it, right? It just totally backs what you were thinking in high school, which is, why am I here anyway? Right? You find out years later, you were right. But what I want to talk about here is this. The Statue of Liberty, when Bartholdi was pitching this, he was a sculptor, okay? And as a sculptor, he was trying to build something great that had never been done before. And so he went to Egypt to be inspired, because he knew that in Egypt, everything was huge, okay? Everything was big, from the pyramids to all the different statues. Everything was super life-size, and he wanted to get that inspiration. Keep that in mind. Then what he did was he went around the world pitching the Statue of Liberty. We were not the first place that he went to. He was a salesman and a sculptor at the same time. And what happened is they went to America. America liked the idea and tried to raise funds for the Statue of Liberty, but they couldn't. They were having a very difficult time raising the funds for the Statue of Liberty, until one gentleman in a local paper, decided to write a blog, or what you call a blog today, or a newspaper article, basically ripping on the middle class, saying, hey, the rich cannot be the only ones that represent America. We need to give to this cause because we need a representation of freedom. And wouldn't you believe it, lo and behold, they raised the funds and they began the process of bringing the Statue of Liberty over to America and assembling it on American soil. Now what's fascinating is if you look at the picture that's on your screen right now, I'm sure it's total coincidence, ladies and gentlemen, that the statue on the left not only looks identical to the Statue of Liberty, but has the exact same rays coming off what is arraying her head as the sun rays, representing the 7 continents of the world. It is the sun god that presides over the world. Oh, I'm not done yet. This is Attis. Now, Attis is somebody you need to understand who he is, because Attis was the priest or the main servant of Cybele, or Ishtar, or the wife of Baal, the sun god. And he, in their craziness, let's just leave it that wink wink, of what went happen in those times, is he castrated himself then would dress up, cross-dress as a woman and wear this hat. This is a close-up of the castrated Addis on the left and Lady Liberty on the right. What I want to suggest to you when I got to this part is I thought to myself, oh my goodness, is Lady Liberty really a lady? Or is it Larry Liberty? I don't know. But I'm going to let you decide as we do a little bit close up here, and you tell me if that looks like a feminine face. Ignore the long hair. Remember, the priests of Ishtar wore long hair, they castrated themselves, wore robes like women, and wore these headdresses. Now, one more better for you. Here is her face before it is assembled, and before you have the ability to look at the hair and be influenced. That's under construction. If I'd known any better, I would think it was Superman. So you can be the judge, ladies and gentlemen, but this little rabbit trail here, I believe, shows us that not only has Addis, or the priest of Ishtar, and sun god worship showing up all over Egypt, all over Rome, all over Greece, and everywhere else in the Eastern Mediterranean, but is on our soils and has infiltrated America today and has literally become the epitome and the torch of freedom. It's bondage. Let's go one further. The 7 rays of the sun. Notice the nimbus, the halo of rays of the sun. This is an ancient pagan sun god. It's everywhere. This is not something they just made up. Helios, look at this. Holding a torch. He's the Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Where did he get the idea of the torch? Ladies and gentlemen, he took a trip here. He took a trip to Egypt. He studied these things. This is what he saw. An over 100-foot Colossus of Helios with this headpiece on of the 7 rays of the sun. Don't tell me that that didn't influence him. The exact attributes of Helios or the Colossus and the sun god and all of those things show up in the Statue of Liberty.
As soon as we stepped out of the subway and started walking down the street towards the new World Trade Center Ground Zero area, the first thing that I saw, besides the Freedom Tower, first walked up on Oculus, the new World Trade Center transportation hub. I was pretty horrified. You can ask Aaron. I couldn't stop talking about that, and I almost didn't want to even go over to the Ground Zero area for a while because I was fixated on how horrified I was by this bone structure. It looks like it's out of Lion King or something, hovering over that area. And when the guard told us it was supposed to be a dove of peace, I actually laughed in his face because I was just like, you gotta be kidding me that they're actually trying to tell people that. And they are trying to go with this whole bird in flight language that they use in some of the articles about it, which I'm about to show you, but it's not a bird. Quite obvious. They called it Oculus. What does Oculus mean? Eye. Okay? It's not a bird. And if you look up this guy, my friend Jennifer Nielsen off Facebook sent me a bunch of pictures. If you look up this guy who designed it, Santiago Calatrava, he's pretty well obsessed with eyeball structures. This is the City of Arts and Sciences in Valencia, Spain. This is one of the buildings there. And this is the drawing that when he was sketching it out, obviously. I mean, it looks like the CBS logo. This is the new building that's currently being built at the Florida Polytechnic University, the Innovation Science and Technology building. They're going to put water around that. Clearly, I mean, what is this? There's no other way to take it. I mean, look at it as it's being built. These are the construction photos. It's an eyeball. Well, not only is Oculus at World Trade Center an eyeball, it's meant to open. It gives me the chills to talk about it. Okay, so initially it was meant to open all the time, but they're not going to do that anymore. What they've decided now is that the skylight of Oculus, the closed eye they have put over Ground Zero, is going to open once every year on September 11th. But get this, you guys. It's not going to stay open for the whole day. It's only going to stay open for exactly 102 minutes on each September 11th, because that is how long the 2001 terrorist attack lasted, from the time the first jetliner hit the Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. until the collapse of the second tower at 10:28 a.m. So every year for 102 minutes, the eye of Oculus will open at Ground Zero. Think about that for a minute. Just take that in. Living, breathing building. That's what they refer to it as, a living, moving building. It's a living creature, it's evolving, it's morphing because it's receiving a skin. That's how they talk about this Oculus building. Mr. Heintage said his biology analogy was not intended to echo Mr. Calatrava's organic conception of Oculus, but it seems safe to guess the architect would be pleased to hear that his building moved. He always said that it would. So that's how they talk about this thing, like it's living, like it's alive. And look at what Mr. Calatrava said at one of the annual remembrances. In all weather conditions, the public will experience a subtle sense of man's vulnerability while maintaining a link to a higher order. The memory of the victims will be honored and explicitly expressed through the most symbolic and significant element of the project, allowing people to spontaneously gather with a sense of transcendence and elevation. It's not a bird. I'm just saying, it's not a bird. And all of these buildings are way over budget, and they know it, but that's not what this is about. I mean, it costs $4 billion just to build the not Freedom Tower, One World Trade Center, formerly the Freedom Tower, that everyone will always remember as being the Freedom Tower. Even if it garners $120 million in rent a year from the businesses inside it, it would still take 35 years to recoup the cost of construction. But as one worker on the site says, that's hardly the point. Quote, "This building wasn't built to make money. It was built to demonstrate something to the world."
That morning, being down here now is different as it looks. I still have those visuals, those images in my mind, in my head.
We're on, as a nation, missions now.
Suicide bombers, it happens in Israel on a daily basis. Those are the things we have to be careful of now. We have to watch for now.
Do you expect a suicide bomb struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center 1 year ago? Hundreds of people have gathered here at Ground Zero to mark the anniversary in what is expected to be, we tell you that the anniversary ceremony will also include several moments of silence, marking the times that the hijacked jets place roses on the site for a flower arrangement that will be turned into.
That's you and I, as the Masonic Illuminati sees us, as mindless apes, bowing and worshipping their demonic black obelisk of Masonic wisdom and Luciferian light. Their cube, so they think, that's going to spark and create this new world order, this Luciferian Antichrist system that's about to come upon the entire world. All symbolized by events taking place in our day and age. 9/11. That was one of their events. The Hilton Hotel. You can see it in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. Blatantly, just there it is, put there in the Hilton Hotel in space. They both checked their watches. So they're telling you a little time story right there, how this is all dealing with time. And remember now, the original script was dealing with Saturn, not Jupiter. And Saturn deals with time. When you look at the original Millennium Hotel that was built in front of the Twin Towers, it's an obelisk. They intentionally built it to look like the obelisk in 2001, and they even say so. In the original script, of course, it's a cube that they changed. The logo of the Hilton Hotel is two twin towers within the all-seeing eye. It also is a pause button. A pause button stops time. It freezes time. It's also a 6, which is a 9. It's 666, and it's all in the movie. When you look at another one of their hotels, it shows like a split down the middle, representing like 9/11 Twin Towers falling over. There are 5 pillars on each side, and it's split down the middle, and that's for the center column in all of the designs of Freemasonry. It's all there represented. The monolith Hilton Hotel representing the monolith. They even said that that's what it represents officially. And there it stood in the middle, and it still stands to this day. The monolith, the center invisible pillar cube that survived the disaster. Well, now, I found this footage on YouTube. It was shot by somebody else. And what I found interesting is he shot it from the Hilton Millennium Hotel that's built in the shape of the monolith from 2001. Still standing to this day. And he's shooting outside of the window, looking at the 2 memorials for the Twin Towers and the Freedom Building and some other buildings. I mean, don't you find it strange that this thing survived? I mean, they really planned this out pretty well. They made only what they wanted to come down. Perfect demolition, but that's how they did it. Intentionally making sure that this monolith cube represents their Illuminati wisdom which is that small center. If you look at Masonic pictures of the two columns, you'll see in the middle there's this, there it is, this little smaller column or cube or monolith or obelisk right there. And this is how they brought it in. The Freedom Tower represents this wisdom, this new world order that they want to bring upon all of us. I've read it's supposedly supposed to be 1,776 feet tall. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know how to confirm that, but looking on the internet, this is what I've read, this is what I've seen. Now, if that is the case, they are most definitely not referring to America's birth of 1776, but to the Illuminati's birth of 1776, because that's who they are and that's who did this. And also, in the same video, look at these memorials to the two towers, the two twin towers here. Look at those things. They're square holes in the ground. There you got waterfalls running on the sides, and in the center is like another black hole, cube, square, black pit. And it's all just going down and down and down. Then it goes into that square pit hole. What kind of memorial is that? They're sending people into the abyss, and also at the same time symbolically representing that they've opened a hole to the abyss. I believe if you go to these places, I'm sure it just sucks energy like a vampire from people's hearts and souls and minds. I'm sure it leaves you with a dead feeling inside. These memorials aren't normal. They're not right. This is evil stuff. There you go. The Freedom Tower. Oh man. It's so obvious what's going on. Very disgusting and evil what these people are doing. Or what these entities are doing, rather, because I think the people are just pawns in the hands of these entities that are returning.
In case you're thinking I'm imagining connections where none exist, right outside this room is one of the oldest artifacts in North America, a 3,500-year-old Egyptian obelisk from Heliopolis. Note the octagon surrounding yet another solar symbol. There are only a handful of ancient Egyptian obelisks left in the world, even counting those still in Egypt. So when I see one, I sit up and take notice. This obelisk is the twin of Cleopatra's Needle in London. Egyptian temples typically had paired obelisks at their entrances, so the obelisks now in New York and London used to together frame the entrance to a temple in Heliopolis. It was quite a difficult and expensive project in the 19th century, and even today, to transport a 224-ton slab of granite halfway across the planet. Connecting nations with ancient Egypt was apparently a very powerful motivator to the Freemasons who bothered moving these obelisks. Overlaying the floor plan, we see what the aqueduct is pointing to. Literally an ancient Egyptian temple within the Sackler wing of the Met. The Temple of Dendur had to be removed from its original site in order to save it from being submerged by the construction of the Aswan High Dam. In 1965, the government of Egypt presented the temple as a gift to the United States, which was ceremonially represented by Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. That's quite a coincidence, considering the aqueduct in Jackie's reservoir led us to the very temple she received. Was the former First Lady playing the role of Isis? in New York, let's take a look at one of the most famous tourist spots and greatest symbols of America and visit the Statue of Liberty. The authors Graham Hancock and Robert Bivall have researched the Statue of Liberty, and you might be surprised what they have found. French sculptor and well-known Freemason Bartholdi designed the colossal statue originally for the opening of the Suez Canal in 1867. Fellow Freemason Gustave Eiffel, who was later made famous for his Parisian Tower, was commissioned as the statue's engineer. It is said Bartholdi modeled the sculpture after the Roman goddess Libertas. The truth is, Libertas was an echo of the Egyptian goddess Isis. After Bartholdi's Colossus was rejected for the Suez Canal due to financial reasons, he repurposed it as the Statue of Liberty for New York Harbor. It comes as no surprise that the cornerstone for the Statue of Liberty was laid in a Masonic ceremony. Researcher Jim Allison has connected the dots and identified the triangle between Giza, Pharos, and the opening of the Suez Canal. The angle of this triangle matches the slope of the Great Pyramid and looks like the Greek letter delta, which beautifully echoes the Nile Delta. The Colossus of Rhodes was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The giant statue that stood on the island of Rhodes depicted Apollo, god of the sun, who also wore a crown of 7 rays. 7 rays is very interesting in light of the culmination of the initiation ceremony into the cult of Isis. According to 19th century author Edward Schur, after a successful initiate survived all the harrowing tests and triumphed over death by fire, water, and temptation of the senses, he was led into an inner sanctum, where he looked upon a colossal metal statue of Isis, crowned with a diadem of 7 rays. I believe 7 is Isis's secret number. Isis's son Horus was god of the sun, just as Apollo depicted in the Colossus of Rhodes was god of the sun to the Greeks. You'll see that the Statue of Liberty's base star is quite odd, having 11 points. I think this was done to make the number symbolism in the Statue of Liberty fit an important Egyptian structure, the Great Pyramid of Giza, whose height to base proportion is 7 to 11, like the famous convenience store's name. And if you didn't get 11 from the base star, the height of the statue from heel to top of head is 111 feet, 1 inch.
Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. New York Times reported Anselm Kiefer's sculpture will go up at Rockefeller Center. And it says Anselm Kiefer, the German artist known for his monumental paintings and installations layering history, culture, religion, and mythology, will create his first ever site-specific outdoor public sculpture in the United States this spring at Rockefeller Center in New York. And it says for this sculpture, Mr. Kiefer has cast in lead a colossal open book carried aloft by eagle's wings spanning 30 feet. This will be supported by a 20-foot tall column encircled by a snake with its head erect and tongue hissing at the book. A number of other giant lead books will be strewn on the ground at the base of this theatrical tableau. The piece is obscurely titled Uraeus, referencing the upright form of the Egyptian cobra associated with the serpent goddess Wadjet and used as a symbol of power on the crowns of pharaohs. But the work, evocative of both a lectern and an altar, is open to multiple readings. And it gets into some stuff here, but I found this website here, the Public Art Fund, which is the place that funded this sculpture here. And it says here, the sculpture's cryptic title, Uraeus, refers to the erect shape of the Egyptian cobra associated with the serpent goddess Wadjet and a symbol of power and divine authority. The wings evoke the headdresses and necklaces worn by Egyptian royalty in homage to the vulture goddess Nekhbet. Wadjet and Nekhbet were the guardians of Lower and Upper Egypt, respectively, and following ancient Egyptian unification, became the joint patrons of the civilization. When conceiving this monumental sculpture, Kiefer was recalling Friedrich Nietzsche's famous philosophical work of fiction, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, from 1891, with its ideas of the will of power, the death of God, and the Übermensch, or Superman, as the ultimate aspiration of human beings. Nietzsche described Zarathustra thus, quote, "This book, with the voice bridging centuries, is not only the highest book there is, the book that is truly characterized by the air of the heights. The whole fact of man lies beneath it at a tremendous distance. It is also the deepest born out of the innermost wealth of truth, an inexhaustible well to which no pal descends without coming up again filled with gold and goodness." In Kiefer's imagination, word and image, sacred text, and icon have the power to soar upwards, transcending reality and offering hope of redemption. We've been saying this the whole time. They're looking for redemption without Jesus Christ, redemption through the hands of man, not from God. So this has always been the occult promise. They're at it still. They've been at it for centuries. I think they're getting a lot closer, and that's why they're starting to become even more bold in proclaiming these pursuits out in the public like this, especially at the Rockefeller Center here. Uraeus is both gigantic lectern and altar. You see that, guys? They say it's an altar. They just straight up say this is an altar to an Egyptian goddess. The presence of the snake that insinuates itself at the foot of the column introduces an element of danger and death, as if the monument is being undermined. Yet in more than one mythology, the serpent is a creature of wisdom and secret knowledge. Kiefer's wide-ranging art, which embraces historical memory, politics, religion, and myth, is layered with such multiple meanings and paradoxes. So again, admitting it's an altar, admitting that the serpent actually represents wisdom and secret knowledge, which it does for certain traditions, but that's what they're trying to push for at the Rockefeller Center. And so they're not even shy about this, guys. This is occult architecture being just placed right in front of us. And, you know, those folks who don't know any better, who live in that community or whatever, they're going to celebrate it and be a part of this and whatnot. I think there's a lot of symbolism going on here. And look at this picture here, how it aligns with the building here. I mean, this is all about ascension. This is all about an upward mobility of human beings and, you know, becoming gods. It says here in this Gagosian article, Anselm Kiefer's monumental body of work represents a microcosm of collective memory, visually encapsulating a broad range of cultural, literary, and philosophical allusions from the Old and New Testament, Kabbalah mysticism, Norse mythology, and Wagner's Ring Cycle to the poetry of Ingeborg Bachmann and Paul Celan. And of course, the idea of a serpent going up the staff represents the Kundalini, spiritual ascension into the crown chakra, and then, you know, you reach enlightenment. This sort of practice and teaching is pretty much the religion of the elite, so it's no surprise here that they're representing this here. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Really, the New Age movement is an old philosophical movement, but I feel like even though we've been talking about it and exposing a lot of it for years here, we have to keep doing it because, again, it really truly is the religion of a lot of these folks in the elite, and they do push that ideology upon the masses. So stay watchful, stay vigilant, be sober-minded. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless.
It's a spear. And at the very tip of that spear is one of Satan's little monuments, one of his little vanities, called the Grand Army Arch. Now, you tell me, folks, what you're looking at here, okay? We got our two pillars, very grand, mind you. These are not small things. This is a person down here, with what they will tell you are eagles on globes on either side. Do your research. With the rider on the chariot and all manner of things up here that you just need to research for yourself. Please, please do it, because this is important. This is how Satan operates on this earth. Now, if you look just beyond that arch, there's another monument here. It's a fountain. And it's got all kinds of neat little sculptures in it. That's Poseidon. And notice the trident. The same trident that we find out here in New York Harbor, right next to Sandy Hook, with our devil. The point I want to make is, if we go right from this cow, and we go straight through that arch, right by our Poseidon monument, we wind up right over, almost precisely, at the Trump Tower. Okay?
6 hours, 42 minutes, 20 seconds.
Basic principles of time travel in there. You got your vessel and your portal. Vessel can be just about anything like a spacecraft.
Like a DeLorean.
No craft.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like futuristic, you know?
6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. Is when the world will end. 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, 12 seconds. That is when the world will end.
Calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
But a bright line in the sand, and we will protect you, that I can tell you, and we will say enough is enough.